Hello everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take a quick look here at Bitcoin, of course, kind of see what's going on, and obviously understand a little bit more about where it might be going next. Now, if you're new to the channel, I'm not a financial advisor. I just love teaching people how to trade, and that is my passion, and I do this every day for a living, so I can tell you it's very realistic. You just got to be, you got to be real with yourself and make sure that you're not overdoing it, right? Overtrading is a really big problem, and I talked with my community a lot about that recently here. And just make sure you're cautious, careful, and pick your battles, right? There's no need to get an itchy trigger finger, if that makes any sense. Also, if you're interested, I do have a trading academy that I just rolled out within my trading community, of course. Link in the description below. CryptoCache.tech is the website, and it's a really cool opportunity to be able to get to become a better trader. So check that out in your own time, of course. Looking forward to working with you. We do have a private chat group and signals that I send regularly. We just opened a short trade with Bitcoin. We're almost to our profit target, and I'll explain more about that here in a moment. Now, first things first, we're going to just look at the key indicators, the normal indicators, and kind of go from there. So standardly, if that's even a word, it's the standard indicators is what I'm trying to get at with Bitcoin. First of all, we're going to look at the 50-day SMA. It's working its way down. Won't be a factor for a little while, in my personal opinion. I do think we might see another, I wouldn't say 33,000 per se. I think that's probably a worst case scenario, but I do think we're going to break 37 here soon and possibly continue downwards. It's just kind of shaping up to feel that way. We lost a lot of momentum yesterday, of course, and that's a natural correction. When you look at TD sequential here, you can see obviously we're at an 8, and it was just an inevitability, of course, for the price to want to turn around. So just bear that in mind. We are kind of at an exhaustive state where the price continued to push upwards. It couldn't go any further, and the bears are taking their profits essentially, right? So that's kind of a standard thing. Again, Bitcoin has a tendency of getting up to a 6, 7, or 8. Rarely will it hit a 9. If it hits a 9 on TD sequential, you can expect a turnaround almost guaranteed. Right now, how much further down this will go is hard to say specifically just yet. We can maybe look at the micro more so and identify, but simply put, right now, I'm not surprised to see the price wick down to 37,000. That's kind of the expected support. So I think it'll probably spend a little time closer to 37,000 here in the near future, and we'll see obviously what that means. Looking at the RSI, you can see it's back on its way down, of course. We did recently break this trend line, which is nice, because we had this little descending type of pattern, and it did break above, which was helpful. But this is a pretty common characteristic for Bitcoin to effectively break a key level resistance and then get rejected. Okay, so in other words, we can see that here, of course. Generally speaking, usually it's a good sign when the price comes above and breaks above a trend line, this downward trend. But I need you to understand too that 1 day worth of confirmation isn't enough. At least not for me, right? At least when we're looking at the big picture and we're trying to understand overall movement. You can't, it's kind of like being premature and jumping the gun, so to speak, when you have just one candlestick or 1 day's worth of trading that is, kind of right at that just breaking that trend line, right? Now, trend lines are pretty important, but on the same accord, they're not always 100% either. But with this being almost a doji candle from yesterday, you can pretty much imply that we had a somewhat of a state of indecision, right? That's pretty common. That's another reason why I opened a short signal with my community. We shorted ETH as well. We've taken profit there. We're almost taking profit here with Bitcoin. We're about $80 off today. It's okay. I think it'll still hit. But regardless of that fact, you need to know, though, that when it comes to this continuation type of pattern, again, that the main reason why is we didn't have a lot of confidence in Ichimoku Cloud, and as well, we also saw the price kind of looking like it was reaching a plateau. 38.8 was a difficult place for the price to cross yesterday, and it could not do that. Had a lot of rejection at that point, big sell wall, if you will. So 38.8, if you're going to remember a number, that would be essentially a good resistance level for Bitcoin. In fact, why don't we just go ahead and put that on here? Make sure that we got the right stuff. All right, just so we have that in place here for later. Now let's take a look at the 4-hour chart, kind of identify a couple things. We can see, again, this is a potential scenario. I don't think it's foolproof by any means, but sometimes when you break a trend line, that trend line can effectively work as a support. So tentatively, we're seeing this as a support level. I, again, don't think that's going to hold here soon, but we'll know, obviously, in the relative near future. But generally speaking, it is tentatively holding. I don't put a lot of weight into that. I do like that the 50-day SMA is above the price action right now, and that's working as a resistance level. And I say I like it because obviously we're shorting right now. You got to pick a side and stick to it, right? And in that sense, right now, obviously we're shorting as a community. And in that regard, if you kind of think about it, the 50-day SMA is now working as a potential resistance. So that could effectively keep the price action lower for a little while. Now, it's not a guarantee, right? I mean, as you can see here, 50-day SMA does work as a nice little support level sometimes, but other times it doesn't really matter. Obviously, it's done very well, but it had a crossover here, so to speak, where it was kind of like, who cares, right? But as you can tell, it worked as a resistance here and a nice support level there. So potentially, we could see it work as a resistance here to drive the price action down. Okay. Again, everything that I have to say here is always potential, right? There's no guarantees, but these are things that we stack in our favor, right? So to be a good trader, in my personal opinion, is to extract information from every time frame, find good relevant data that seems to be consistent, and stick with it, work with it. In other words, I have some people that struggle in my community, to try to find their bearings. A lot of times they steer clear of their original intent or that due diligence that you need to have. Me personally, I just take a lot of different factors and kind of build a case on which direction it's going to head. Okay, so on the 1 day, we've already identified that we lost that momentum, we lost that trend line, so to speak. The price is coming down. The macro doesn't look great on the 1 day chart. The midterm here is also telling us we have this potential shift in momentum to a bearish sentiment, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be, bearish until it goes down to, 10,000. It's more realistic to, stick to trend lines in that case. But what I'm getting at here is that the midterm is looking very, like there's a shift, right? A paradigm shift, so to speak, where the 50 worked as a support and now it's potential resistance, albeit a little bit too early to tell. I get that. But it's still something to acknowledge. We're also under 50 on the RSI, which is never a good sign, okay? Again, it has come down below the 50 and bounced right back within a couple of hours, or within half a trading day, rather. So we could very well see this happen, but I don't think that's likely. I think it's more likely to see the price come up and get rejected and come back down off the 50. That's just a very common characteristic you'll find with Bitcoin specifically. It has a tendency of doing that. It's a very unique coin. I've been trading for years, and I can tell you it'll never cease to amaze you, and it'll always surprise you. So do not think you've ever got Bitcoin figured out, because it'll screw you up. Anyways, regardless of that fact, we've got a bearish divergence on the MACD as well. So these are all signs that we want to pay attention to, acknowledge that we have bearish sentiment, bearish divergence on the MACD. We've got a resistance now potentially on the 50, or as 50 rather, on the RSI, and then of course we've got this resistance off of 38,800. So there's literally nothing positive going on here for Bitcoin to want to come to the upside. It's now got a lot of different things in place that it has to overcome in order to come back up. Right? So again, yes, there's a hope and a prayer that the price could shoot back up tomorrow. Is that realistic though? Probably not. Again, just based on my experience, I can tell you right now we've got a nice shift in momentum there, and I'm definitely bearish on Bitcoin for the moment. We'll see here soon, obviously, how that factors in, but I do think we're going to see 37,000 eventually broke, likely later this week, with some type of a push to the downside. The next available support, by the way, if that were to happen, would be somewhere in the range of about 35,500. So just again, 35.5 would possibly be a good dollar cost average target for you if we were to lose 37,000. Something to think about. Or profit target. Coincidentally, that is close to one of our profit targets too for our Bitcoin trade. So just to give you an idea. All right, so looking at the 1 hour chart here, let's go ahead and identify Ichimoku Cloud, of course. And this is what I was talking about yesterday. I think we were somewhere right in this range here, where the lagging span was just kind of coming close to the price action. And in fact, right here at this point, the conversion line was intersecting with the baseline. You want those to be free and clear of each other, right? So now that the conversion line is below the baseline, that's considered to be a short position, right? We want to have or maintain our short position. We don't need to close it because it hasn't come to fruition yet. And the main reason why is because obviously we're below the cloud. We got nice little resistance there for us, basically a support, right? And then of course we got the lagging span free and clear of any price action. So we're talking, there's probably a good, well, how many hours is that? I think that's like 16 hours that we could have roughly between now and the point in which it intersects. So likelihood of the price coming lower in that 16 hours is very high, right? Based on this momentum, based on the fact that it's sold off, we're having a resistance at the 50-day SMA on the 4-hour chart. We've got a 50 RSI essentially holding the price action down. We've got a bearish divergence. I mean, there's pretty much a very large case here. I'd say, like, if I were to throw out a statistic, 80% likelihood that the price will continue down, just based on the fact that I've got, what, 8 out of 10 indicators that are telling me we've got a bearish divergence. Okay, so again, just something to note. Every single indicator here on the Ichimoku cloud is telling us it's going down, and it has no reason to want to come right back up again. Obviously, if it were to come up, it'll probably reject off around 38,000, based on the fact that that is the next key level resistance for the cloud. Okay, and what I mean by that, just that, you know, the cloud will notoriously work as a resistance line. So if the price were to eventually come up, it'll probably come up and reject. That's usually what you see in most cases. Again, it's not a guarantee, but it's just an increased likelihood, right? Last thing I want to look at is T sequential. So we got up to a 5 and then got the reset. Now we're down to a 5. So we do have potential of 5 more hours of bearish divergence, or what, 4 to 9 hours of bearish divergence, depending on how you look at it, because sometimes there is a little extra overtime. Now Bitcoin has been doing it hasn't been hitting 9s very often. So a lot of times we'll see like a 5 or 6 or a 7 and get a reset. So we could very well see a slight push to the upside here, right? Again, I think highest it'll go is 48,000. Sorry, correction, 38,000. The highest it'll go is 38,000. And if it were to hit that, it'll come down and likely consolidate at support and then lose. Something along those lines. I just kind of got that feeling it's going to try again a few times to break 37 and eventually will. 35.5 will be the next available support. Okay. So again, just something to consider. There's no guarantees here, but it's definitely looking like it's breaking down and wanting to kind of come down to complete its double bottom. And what I mean by double bottom isn't, you know, there's no guarantees on double bottoms, right? But, you know, it could look something like this. Obviously, it's not going to look exactly like that. It'll look like kind of a funny W. But I think the likelihood of it coming closer to 33,000 is higher than it would be to turn around and hit 40,000 in the near future, right? So I think we're going to see 37,000 tested. Basically maybe rejected initially, which it has done already, and then effectively tested a second time and then come down to 35.5. I do believe 35.5 will be the next available, so why don't we just go ahead and put another line in here for 35.5 just to be on the safe side, because you know, we need to understand that that could very well happen. All right. So that's kind of where we're at. So we're in this support and resistance channel, okay? So if the price comes down to 35.5, we'll reevaluate, of course, and see if it's an ideal scenario to possibly take a long position back to the upside. There is a consideration for that. But, you know, if you're a channel trader, you know, Bitcoin is effectively trading in a channel right now, okay? Until we break this support level, we'll probably be down here eventually. But until we break that support, we need to kind of honor that that support level, because I do believe we have a lot of volume closer to that profile. Actually, there's almost more volume above the current price action than below. So that does kind of reaffirm the fact that 48, right, and coincidentally, like right around 38.5 is that major amount of volume. So yeah, so for lack of better terms, you know, we're kind of right in this little channel. It's going to take a little while to break to the downside. I don't think we're going to see it just shoot straight down. I think it'll continue to test that support level and eventually break. But for right now, it is what it is, right? So just be cautious, careful, and, you know, optimistic, right? And try not to go all in at once. So I always try to recommend to my community, you know, slowly dollar cost average. Don't add everything at, you know, at one time. You know, don't get too big for your britches either. And what I mean by that is I've had a few community members that they get really good. They get kind of, I wouldn't say high and mighty, so to speak, but you start making some good calls, you know, right? You start giving some really good luck, you could say, for lack of better terms. I know it's not exactly luck, but sometimes it is. And you'll get this kind of, this intrepidation, this fearlessness that you can do anything. And a lot of times what they're doing is just using 1 or 2 indicators and specifically trading that one style. And there's nothing wrong with that in certain ways, certain regards, as long as you're not over trading. But oftentimes I do see that overtrading is a big problem. So, you know, just disclaimer to whomever you are, you know who you are if you're hearing this. Be cautious, be careful, and please try not to trade and revenge trade. You got to take a break. In fact, I have a video in my trading academy about limiting your emotions. Make sure you watch that so you understand how to kind of step away. You want to take breaks. You want to take specific steps that help you, I guess, I don't know, just manage this environment, because it can really tear you apart if you're not careful. But a lot of times, unfortunately, people will just, you know, get fearless, kind of think that they are high and mighty, and then just continue to lose, and then you don't even know it, but you're revenge trading, and you're trying to get your money back just because you're losing it, and you're trying to get, you know, I just want to break even, I just want to cut my losses here, and then you eventually don't, and all these trading strategies that you have that made you a good trader go out the window because you're emotionally trading. Okay, so again, check out those videos. Of course, if you're not currently a community member, I recommend, I have a large library of really good, in my personal opinion, videos that actually help you with the foundations. Go back to the building blocks of what make you a better trader. Okay, it doesn't happen overnight. If you're new to the industry, I can assure you, you're gonna lose your account. You're gonna wipe your account a few times. There's just no other way around it. I've done it plenty of times myself in the past. But I always make sure before I take a trade, there's always that due diligence, and I check all the boxes before I get into it. And right now, Bitcoin's checking all the boxes for a short signal. Just keep that in mind. All right. Well, I hope that you found benefit, of course. Sorry to preach, and I look forward to working with you if you're not currently a member. If you are, thanks again for your support. Looking forward to seeing the next video. You have a great rest of your day. See ya.